Hello everyone, Dr. Polaris here. I know it's kind of become a meme at this point, but carnivorous synapsids have independently developed saber-teeth so many times. Among crown group mammals alone, these have of course included the famous extinct Machairodontine cats like Smilodon or Homotherium, but there have also been several other lesser known examples, such as the bizarre South American sporacodont Thylacosmilus, the Eocene ox-unid Machairoides and Apatylurus, and the subject of today's episode, the genus Barbourofelis. Native to North America and Eurasia during the second half of the Miocene, between 12 and 7 million years ago, this superficially cat-like animal would have strongly resembled a Machairodontine, with its heavy build and greatly elongated upper canines, and indeed lived at the same time in which many of these big cats were diversifying, although it certainly wasn't a true felid. It was in fact the last known genus of nimravid, a lineage of hypercarnivorous basal feliform carnivorans that first emerged during the Middle Eocene, probably in East Asia. As I've already made a video on these animals, albeit a long time ago now, I won't go too deeply into their evolutionary history here, although it is important to list the features that separate nimravids from the so-called true cats. Most species had muscular, low-slung, vaguely feline bodies, with shorter legs and tails than are typical of modern cats. Unlike extant feliforms, the nimravids had a different structure to the small bones of the ear. The middle ear bones of felids are housed in an external structure called an auditory bulla, which is separated by a septum into two chambers. Nimravid remains show ossified bullae with no septum, or no trace at all of the entire bulla. They are instead assumed to have had a cartilaginous housing of the ear mechanism. The feet of these animals were often short, suggesting that they walked in a plantigrade or semi-plantigrade posture, similar to bears, but rather unlike modern cats which walk on their toes. Like felids, nimravids were quite diverse in terms of size and predatory niche, ranging from speedy, lightly built forms such as Dinylurus, that possessed relatively small canines, to massive, heavily built species like Quercylurus, which were comparable in mass to living lions and tigers. While some forms developed robust builds and elongated saber teeth, their upper canines were different in structure from those of Machairodontine felids, being comparatively shorter and more conical in shape. Those species that did possess saber teeth developed large bony flanges on the lower jaw into which their upper canines could be sheathed. These animals thrived during the second half of the Eocene and the subsequent Oligocene, as dense tropical forests were replaced across much of the northern hemisphere by open woodland and savanna. However, most nimravids, with the exception of the subfamily Barbourofelinae, became extinct at the end of the Oligocene, probably due to the expansion of grasslands and probably competition with the amphicyonids. Their extinction gave rise to the infamous cat gap, a 7 million year period in the early Miocene when no cat-like predators were present in North America. While it was once thought that Barbourofelis and its close relatives were members of Nimravidae, studies released in the 2010s reclassified them into their own unique family, which was dubbed Barbourofelinae. However, more recent analyses have supported the older classification, with Barbourofelis and relatives being placed back into Nimravidae. These animals first appeared during the early Miocene circa 22.8 million years ago and seem to have evolved in Africa, which had only recently formed a permanent land bridge with Eurasia. The majority of the oldest and most basal forms were indeed native to Africa, including the leopard-sized Vampyrictis from Tunisia. Barbourofelis itself evolved in North America, with the more basal genus Albanosmilus potentially being its ancestor. It was clearly a very successful and widespread animal, being found across both Eurasia and North America, as well as producing up to 5 species. These varied widely in size, with the smallest and oldest being B. morrisii, which is comparable to a large modern leopard, with a shoulder height of about 65 centimeters or 2 feet 2 inches, while the most massive species, B. fricki, was much larger, potentially weighing up to 256 kilograms or 564 pounds. This is within the same kind of size range as large male Siberian tigers, although Barbourofelis possessed quite a different build, being heavy set with a robust skeleton and comparatively short muscular limbs. The genus had the longest canines of all members of Barbourofelinae, which were also flattened, indicating a high degree of specialisation to its diet. These canines had a longitudinal groove on the lateral surface, which was probably an adaptation to make the canines lighter while maintaining their strength. Other notable traits include the presence of a postorbital bar, eventually extended mental process, or, in plain English, bony extensions on either side of the lower jaw, and the shortening of the skull behind the orbits, in addition to having a very robust physique and short tail. The genus was very stocky in build, resembling a bear-cat hybrid in some ways. Based on its foot structure, Barbourofelis species might have been semi-plantigrade, with most of their weight borne on the bottom of their paws rather than on their toes. Like saber-toothed cats, it's been found that Barbourofelis had delayed eruptions of deciduous upper canines, which suggests that the genus would have practiced a long period of parental care, with females looking after their cubs for almost 2 years as their sabres grew in. In addition to their large carnassial teeth, which were well adapted for shearing meat quickly and in significant quantities, this has led to speculations that Barbourofelis may have been social animals that lived and hunted in groups. Given their robust builds, it's safe to say that these were not fast-running pursuit predators, instead being relatively slow ambush hunters that probably preferred wooded habitats. Their forelimbs were highly flexible and mobile, well suited for grappling with large herbivorous animals, while also possessing wide gapes in order to drive their thin, flattened saber teeth into the throats of prey. Recent studies have indicated that B. fricki may have been a fairly generalist predator, with its stoutly built skull capable of withstanding stress in various prey-killing scenarios. This was in contrast to the later felid Smilodon fatalis, which was found to be a more specialised hunter adapted for making a quick killing strike. Speaking of cranial anatomy, it's also been found that Barbourofelis had a brain that was quite small when compared to living felids, being similar in structure to those of earlier Oligocene Nimravids. The different species were separated not only temporally, but also by their overall ranges. The jaguar-sized B. lavorum, for example, was native to what is now Florida, California and Oklahoma between circa 9.5 and 8 million years ago, with the best remains hailing from the Love bone bed of Alachua County, Florida. This warm ecosystem consisted of a mixture of grassland, dense woodland and marshland, being home to a diverse array of animal species, including the short-legged rhino Tilioceras, the high-browsing giraffe-like camel Apicamelus, the tapir Tapirus webi, proboscidean Gomphotherium, and rival predators such as the bone-crushing dog Epicyon and the saber-toothed cat Nimravides galliani. The latter animal was larger than B. lavorum, being about the size of a female lion, and appears to have preferred hunting in more open grassland conditions. Meanwhile, the species Barbourofelis fricki was native to what is now the western United States between 9 and 7 million years ago, with its remains having been recovered from Kansas, Nebraska, Texas and Nevada. At the Ambelodon Quarry of Nebraska, B. fricki coexisted with canids such as the borophagines Epicyon haydeni and Borophagus itself, the extinct fox Vulpes theronathus, the bear Indarctos oregonensis, and, once again, the Machairodont nimravides. A variety of different horse species have been recovered from this site, most of which were probably on the menu for B. fricki, with juveniles of the rhinos Aphalops and Tilioceras being targeted as well. This was the last species of both Barbourofelis and Nimravidae as a whole, dying out roughly 7 million years ago. It was once thought that this was due to competition with the so-called true saber-toothed cats, although Nimravids and Machairodontines had lived alongside one another since the early Miocene, so this idea seems to be a non-starter. It's far more likely that Barbourofelis, being a relatively slow forest-dwelling ambush predator, struggled to adapt to the continued spread of open grassland ecosystems in North America during the late Miocene, therefore dying out as part of the broader faunal turnovers that occurred at this time. Thanks for watching, everyone. The next episode will be covering another Pleistocene Australian species, this time being the famous yet quite poorly understood giant monitor lizard Varanus priscus, better known under its old name of Megalania. See you again soon. Cheerio.